So you may have noticed things have gotten a little spicy in the tarot community lately. Grab your tea, I'm going to tell you why. And I promise, the planets are entirely to blame. I'm Candy. I'm a witch, an astrologer, and occasionally a comedian, which means I'm uniquely qualified to find all this fascinating and a little bit hilarious. Let's get into it. First, a quick introduction for those of you who don't follow astrology, because you deserve to understand what's happening too. Neptune is the planet of illusion, fog, inspiration, deception, creativity, disillusion, and beautiful, beautiful chaos. Neptune rules the things we can't quite see clearly. Dreams, ideals, what's hidden beneath the surface. Neptune is that friend who shows up with the most incredible gifts and absolutely no concept of personal boundaries. You love them. You also occasionally want to scream. Neptune also rules creativity, artistic inspiration, and the blurry line between where one person's vision ends and another's begins. Keep that in mind. Neptune moves slowly. It takes about 165 years to complete one trip around the zodiac, spending roughly 14 years in each sign. So when Neptune changes signs, it's a big deal. It doesn't happen often, and it just happened. On January 26th of this year, Neptune left Pisces, where it had been at home, comfortable, mystical, and honestly a little sleepy, and stepped out into Aries. For the first time in about 165 years. Aries is fire. Aries is me, mine, I. Aries is the warrior, the pioneer, the one who acts first and thinks later. Neptune stepping into Aries is like your most ethereal, boundary-dissolving friend suddenly discovered their inner fighter. Things got interesting fast. Now let's look at the chart for that exact moment, because it's quite a story. The ascendant was Aries, which made Mars the chart ruler. The chart ruler is like the CEO of the chart, the planet in charge. Mars, planet of war, aggression, and action, was running this show. And where was Mars? In the 11th house. The 11th house is the house of community, social networks, groups, online spaces, YouTube, perhaps. Mars, the Lord of War, decided to throw a party in this house of community. What could possibly go wrong? And Mars wasn't alone. He was conjunct Pluto, the Lord of the underworld. Transformation, power, and things that operate in the shadows. So we had the Lord of War and the Lord of the underworld together in the community house at that exact moment when Neptune entered Aries. I'm just saying. So over in Aquarius, that 11th house, Venus and Mercury were conjunct as well. Arts, crafts, communication, creativity, all in the sign that rules technology, social media, innovation, and cutting-edge communities. The sign of the collective. The sign of, dare I say, YouTube. So at this Neptune ingress, creativity and communication were front and center in the house of the collective. And Neptune, planet of blurred lines and dissolved boundaries, was walking in the door. There's a dog barking in the background. The question of where one person's artistic vision ends and another begins, Neptune made that much, much murkier. Now here's a fun one. Uranus, planet of sudden disruption and chaos, was sitting in the second house, the house of values and worth, and it was conjunct Al Ghul. Capit Al Ghul is known as the most difficult fixed star in the sky. Historically associated with losing one's head, literally and figuratively. Sudden rage, chaos, things going very sideways very fast. So at this Neptune ingress, the planet of chaos was sitting on the most volatile star in the sky, in the house of artistic worth and value. The value of creative work, who owned it, who got credit for it, what it was worth, became a lightning rod. Now Saturn. Saturn is the planet of discipline, rules, structure, accountability, patience, long-term consequences. In Aries, Saturn is in fall or depression, meaning he's deeply uncomfortable. Aries moves fast, acts on impulse, leads with ego. Saturn wants to slow down, build carefully, hold people accountable. At the ingress, Saturn in fall in Aries was like a librarian trying to referee a boxing match. He was doing his best. Nobody was listening. Here's why that mattered for the community specifically. Saturn rules Aquarius in traditional astrology. Aquarius rules community spaces, social networks, collective structures, technology. And Saturn, Aquarius's ruler, was struggling, weakened. The structures that normally hold community together, shared values, trust, communication, accountability, were under real pressure. Saturn was trying, Aries wasn't interested. And finally, Chiron, the wounded healer. At the Neptune ingress, Chiron was in Aries, right at the threshold of Taurus, between the 1st and 12th house. Hovering at the doorway, Chiron's ruler in that placement was Mars. And Mars, as we just said, was conjunct Pluto. In the 11th house of community, in a power struggle. So the wound that was driving all of this, underneath the drama, underneath the conflict, was a wound about identity, courage, and whether there was enough room for everyone. Whether you got to take up space, whether your creative work got to exist and be recognized alongside everyone else's. That wound was present at the very beginning of this Neptune cycle, It was driving more than people realized. I'm going to pull an oracle card and a tarot card using this Hecate, Queen of the Witches oracle with Cosmic Visions Tarot. What was the universe seeding in January that we're still feeling now? That one seems to want to come to the top. Here's the backings. Of the sea, feelings, what lies beneath the surface asks to be felt. Five of Pentacles, feeling left out, locked out. Okay. Five of Pentacles, that's a challenging one for sure. Conflict. So with all that baked into the ingress chart, what did we actually see unfold? Without getting into names and specifics, because honestly, the astrology tells the story better than I can, we saw exactly what those placements promised. Neptune blurred the lines around artistic originality. The question of where inspiration ends and imitation begins got genuinely murky. And Neptune, true to form, didn't offer a clean answer. Sometimes that murkiness is innocent, sometimes it isn't. Neptune doesn't really care either way. He just dissolves the boundary and lets the humans sort it out. We saw the potential for outside forces operating in the shadows. People stirring the pot from behind the scenes, sending things into the community that weren't quite what they appeared. Pure Neptune, Pluto energy. Things that seem to be coming from one direction, coming from another direction entirely. We saw the AI conversation heat up, Aquarius technology, Neptune dissolving the line between human creativity and machine output. Of course, that became a flashpoint. Of course it did. And Saturn in fall meant that when people tried to establish rules, accountability, or consequences, it often didn't stick. Or it created more conflict than it resolved. The librarian and the boxing match. I'll be honest, Neptune's fog caught me for a moment as well. I floated an idea publicly in a comment section that I wasn't sure about, and I own that. Neptune is not selective about who he confuses. Here's what I find most interesting about this whole period. And this is the part that goes beyond drama into something more meaningful. Okay, I'm going to share 3 charts, and in all 3, Saturn and Neptune are conjunct. And Saturn conjunct Neptune is one of the most philosophically rich combinations in astrology. It asks at its core, what is illusion and what is reality? What structures in your life, in your community, are genuinely solid? Which ones are built on something real? And which ones are very convincingly costume? For a community of people that work with intuition, with cards, with healing arts, That's not a small question. It's the question. Who actually has integrity here? Who is performing integrity? Neptune makes it very hard to tell. Saturn, even in fall, is trying to make us find out. This is where I'd invite everyone watching, not just the people that might be involved in some drama, to sit with this question personally. What in your own community spaces is real? What are you taking on faith that may deserve a closer look? In December, Neptune will go direct. And Neptune in the 12th house at the direct station, I'll share that later, will ask the same question about our closest alliances. Who is genuinely aligned with your values, and who might be wearing a mask you haven't fully seen yet? That's not paranoia. That's discernment. And Saturn, even struggling, demands it. And now, as of this morning, actually, Neptune has stationed retrograde, which means we get to go back over all of this. Slowly, deliberately. Lucky us. But genuinely, retrograde periods aren't punishments, they're review. Neptune retrograde is asking, did you actually learn what you were supposed to learn the first time? Did you see clearly? Or did the fog get you? The chart for Neptune's retrograde station today has Gemini rising, which makes Mercury the chart ruler. And Mercury is currently retrograde. Mercury retrograde rules miscommunication, things said impulsively, messages misunderstood, old conversations resurfacing. As the chart ruler of Neptune's retrograde station, that energy is front and center. Think before you post. Read before you respond. Things are not always what they appear right now. Uranus conjunct Mars in the first house. Sudden, disruptive, combative, expressed right at the surface. In Gemini, through words, communication, social media, comment sections. That's a lot of fire for a retrograde asking for reflection, but there it is. Now, the 11th house again. Community keeps showing up in these charts, and here it is a third time. Neptune conjunct the moon, conjunct Saturn in the 11th. Emotions running high in community spaces. Things that were hidden starting to surface. The moon brings feelings to the surface. Raw, public, visible. Saturn brings weight and consequences. Neptune, retrograde, lifts the veil. Discord groups, gatekeeping. Who's in? Who's out? Who gets to belong? These are 11th house themes, and they're all activated right now. Neptune in the 11th asks, are your community spaces actually what they appear to be? Saturn, even struggling, says, show receipts. Chiron in the 12th house for this retrograde station chart today. He's in Taurus, hidden 12th house. The wounded healer has stepped back from this doorway. Taurus is ruled by Venus, and in this chart, Venus is in Leo. Leo is the sign of the spotlight, recognition, being seen and celebrated for your creative work. So the hidden wound, the one doing its healing quietly in the background, is about the spotlight. Who gets seen? Who gets credit? Who shines and who doesn't? In a community built around YouTube channels and creative work, the wound is not hard to find. But here's the grace of Chiron in the 12th house. The healing is happening, even if we can't see it. Even when it's messy and public and uncomfortable on the surface, Underneath, something is being tended to. And here's the piece I want you to hold on to because it's genuinely beautiful. Underneath all of this surface turbulence, the Mars-Uranus friction, the Mercury retrograde chaos, the emotional rawness, the outer planets are in remarkable harmony with one another. Pluto sextile Neptune, Jupiter trine Neptune, Uranus sextile Neptune, trine Pluto, sextile Jupiter. Sextiles and trines are positive aspects. These are slow-moving planets in supportive conversations. That doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen often. What it tells me is this: the turbulence is purposeful. This isn't random destruction. Something is being refined. The community, tarot tube, the broader magical community, creative communities everywhere, is going through a genuinely evolutionary process. It's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. Let's pull some more cards. What does the community need to understand right now during this retrograde period? One just popped out. Ace of Wands. Okay. Let's pull an oracle from Hecate. This outer planet alignment is very exciting. Very Ace of Wands. New energy, a reset. Oof. Okay, I pulled the same one. Okay, once again. Of the sea, feelings. What lies beneath the surface asks to be felt. Okay, so I did pull the chart for when Neptune goes direct in December, and I'll be honest with you, it's not a simple solution. Taurus will be rising, which makes that chart ruler Venus, and Venus will be in Scorpio, the sign of her exile or detriment. She'll be uncomfortable in deep water, dealing with intensity she didn't necessarily ask for, and she'll be squaring Pluto conjunct the moon in the 10th house, the house of public recognition. Moon conjunct Pluto in the 10th, in Aquarius. Something emotional and powerful will become very public at that time. Pluto doesn't let things stay buried forever. Whatever that's been operating beneath the surface of community spaces, the thing Neptune's fog has been obscuring, Pluto in the 10th house will have opinions about that, public opinions. Neptune and Saturn will still be conjunct, but for that chart, they will be in the 12th house. The 12th is the house of hidden things, behind the scenes, what operates in the shadows. Saturn there will add karmic weight. Things that have been operating quietly may finally face some structure, some consequence. Not necessarily publicly, but the accounting will be happening. And Chiron, this is the detail I find most meaningful for this community, will be retrograde back in Aries. He'll have returned to Aries on September 17th for one final pass, reviewing everything from the last 8 years before permanently moving into Taurus in April 2027. So for this chart of Neptune's direct station in December, Chiron is doing his last review of the wounds around identity, courage, and creative space. The invitation will be to integrate, complete, and move on, not to keep picking at it. This is the final chapter of that story. Jupiter will be conjunct the South Node, suggesting the release of old patterns, old ways of relating in community, old hierarchies, old resentments. Something will be ready to let go of. And Mars, the Lord of War, that started all of this at the ingress, Neptune entering Aries, will be applying to a sextile with Venus by 1 degree, the fighter moving toward the artist. After everything that will have unfolded since January, that feels like a meaningful shift in energy. December won't be a clean resolution, but it'll be a reckoning. And reckonings, uncomfortable as they are how communities actually evolve. Use this retrograde period wisely. Get clear on what you actually value, who you actually trust, and what kind of community you want to be a part of, and what kind of community you want to be a part of building. Before I close, I want to come back to Chiron one more time, because I think it's the most important thread in all 3 charts for this specific community. Tarot readers, witches, astrologers, oracle deck creators, people who work with cards, with intuition, with energy, with healing. We are all, in our own way, wounded healers. That's not an insult, that's Chiron's gift. The wound is what makes the healing possible. You can't guide someone through territory you haven't navigated yourself. Chiron's presence in all 3 charts of this Neptune cycle, it's pretty important. The wound around creative identity, around whether there's room for you, was right there from the beginning, driving more of the conflict than anyone named. In the retrograde and direct charts, he's in the 12th house, healing quietly, behind the scenes, whether the drama on the surface acknowledges it or not. The community is healing. It doesn't look like it right now, but the astrology says it is. What I'm here to say is, you're not imagining it. The tension is real. It's written in the sky, and it has a purpose. Neptune in Aries is asking all of us, creators, viewers, community members, to get honest about what we create and why, about who we trust and why, about where the line is between inspiration and imitation, between community and performance. Excuse me. Between integrity and its costume. That's not a comfortable question, but it's the right one. I'm Candy, and this is Spooky Boo. And we're spilling the tea, figuratively, and sometimes literally. Spilling the tea on the planets, because I'm going to tell you what they're up to. Thanks for being here.